to the cloud. We're good.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, the 14th of April, 7:04 p.m. And this meeting of the Wellington Sustainability and Energy Committee will come to order. All four members of the current committee are present. Thanks, everybody, for making the time to be here tonight. We have a quorum, and we will open the floor for present to speak. We have Ralph Toulis and Tim Sadler on the line. Would either of you care to say anything at present to speak?
Not at this point.
Okay. Evening, Ralph. Okay, we will move on to old business.
Mr. Chairman.
Under A, discuss the revised letter from John Tan to the Board of Selectmen. I have to apologize. I still do not have my revised letter ready. I will endeavor to work on that so I have it ready for next month. So I do apologize for that, guys. Still working on it.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion that we move to new business and postpone old business until new business on the agenda has been completed? Just
sure. Since we have Tim on the line, we can move right to new business. The motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded to move new business in front of old business for this evening. Is there any further discussion on it? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All members in favor of moving new business in front of old business, say aye.
Aye.
Bill, I think Bill Luschan, you're still muted. Yeah, well, we have 3 out of 4 voted aye, so this motion carries. Bill, you're voting aye, Bill?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I'm having technical difficulties tonight.
Okay. How did you vote on the motion to move new business?
Oh,
Bill Luschan?
yeah. Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so the motion carries unanimously. We will move new business. Under new business A, discuss proposal to the Wellington Housing Authority, doing business as Button Hill Senior Housing, for a large solar array about 250 feet by 125 feet located north of the Button Hill buildings, based on the wording and incentives offered by the Eversource Master Metered Multifamily Affordable Housing Program. So, Don, do you want to present? I think you can present your screen if you'd like.
I don't want to present my screen. I want to read a brief introduction, although probably not that brief, and offer my apologies up front, and thank everybody for attending, which is our board as well as Tim. I finished a conversation with Tim, for those that haven't checked their email in the past couple hours. And my analysis of Earthlight's proposal was deemed inaccurate. So that makes most of our conversation here sort of moot. I thought I could interpret the multifamily affordable housing program rules, but my calculations don't meet the Connecticut Green Bank's calculations, per what Tim had sent me actually the middle of last month. So my spreadsheet that I spent most of the weekend and some of last week on is kind of moot. So anyhow, my intent with this discussion was to receive input on the merits of the land lease proposal that I had incorrectly called a power purchase agreement from Earthlight to the Housing Authority, because I feel it's important that I provide my feedback to the Housing Authority and get some feedback from our Sustainability and Energy Committee. It's my understanding also that once we commit to Earthlight's proposal, that includes historical kilowatt hours from Button Hill, Willington Woods, Senior Center, and the town water pump house, that we can probably no longer use that historical annual kilowatt hours for future arrays. So I want to be careful about what we do. Of course, the rules for future incentives are not known. Actually, the federal incentives day by day seem to be not known. One thing that is known is that larger size PV arrays have efficiencies of scale versus smaller arrays, which may not have those efficiencies of scale. So it would be nice to incorporate all these kilowatt hours if in the reality, uh, we were to someday determine they were beneficial to Button Hill and to our residents, and possibly the residents of Wellington Woods, if we have a conversation with them also. So we really have no confirmation that we can use the town's historical 12-month kilowatt hour numbers or Wellington Woods. That's a conversation we have to have. But the rules say that we can use a historical kilowatt usage quote on the property. So that would lead us to believe that we could, even though a couple of the facilities on the property are not residential. So we're trying to verify that with the Connecticut Green Bank. And I had some wrong numbers in my worksheet. I had thought that we'd see something like 430,000, but Tim brought to my attention that I had failed to recognize adequately an email he sent me last month that said we'd be looking at $226,370 if they were to install that large an array. And that money would be for the benefit of our residents, given 10 items or so that the Green Bank determines are qualified ways to spend that $226,000. Actually, there's another $35,400, $460 that is eligible to reimburse us for the lease of the land. But that $35,460 is over a 20-year period. So Button Hill doesn't see much money from that. So
That's 35,000. I'm sorry, that's 35,000 over 20 years. So roughly 1,750 a year.
yes, yeah. So there's not a lot in it for us as far as a land lease. There's a lot in it for us as far as benefiting our residents. And probably that majority of that money we would use based on previous discussions with our board and our management. We could use that probably to offset our internet costs that our residents have to pay now, which would save them about $50, $55 a month, and that increases a little bit each year. So, well, that's nice. It doesn't do anything for Button Hill's budget. That's sort of my concern, and I wanted to compare different options, but apparently I need the help of the Green Bank because they have a calculation method that is kind of a black box to me. So I'm gonna have to contact them and talk a little bit more, although I just did open up a loan lease program under the Solar Map program that we had discussed with the Green Bank about a month ago, and I need to go through that and see if anything makes sense for solar. So that's where I am tonight. I don't have a whole lot to share other than the fact that, you know, this system would be probably located outside of our leased area with the selectmen. I've had discussions with them. They sort of want to know what's in it for them. Well, we got that 34,000. We can give them a portion of that. That's part of the lease payment. And then we would see nothing for our own budget other than maybe an ability someday to go up and rent, which we have a balloon payment coming, and I want to try to build up some reserves for that. So I don't have a whole lot to talk about other than whether Earthlight's proposal with those numbers of 35,460 in land lease payments and $226,370. These calculations by the Connecticut Green Bank, by the way, to our residents.
Don, the 220,000, is that over 20 years as well? So it's roughly 11,000 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm just gonna sort of open
Tim's
it.
got his hand up.
Yeah, I'm gonna open it for conversation and let him go ahead.
Yeah, Tim, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, the 220 is upfront. It's not over 20 years. So you would
okay.
receive as
okay.
an upfront payment.
But it is total.
Yeah, exactly. And is this open discussion? Do you want me to speak?
I think it
Yeah,
is.
sure. Go.
Okay.
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead, Tim.
I'm on the board of selectmen, but we have different rules sometimes. And
Right, I know,
yeah.
yeah, it's not exactly present to speak, but we invited you, so yeah, please,
I
please.
appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, because sometimes people get really annoyed when we're like, "I'm sorry, this is public comment. You like, we can't answer your questions." You know?
Yeah.
But first of all, well, John, you run a good meeting. You've clearly been doing this a long time. You guys all flow nicely. Second of all, Don has been extremely, extremely helpful. Really putting a lot of effort into getting electric bills from all of these different facilities is not easy because we do it every day, John. We know how hard it is sometimes to get
Yeah,
bills, especially accurate ones. And Don's checked spreadsheets that I put together and made good comments, and also met me on site a couple times and had good ideas with regard to location, where to actually put it, what makes sense, where we could potentially tie in. Also, was Don's idea over by the transformer behind the dumpster. So I know you beat yourself up there, Don, a little bit, but please don't too much. You've been extremely good to work with and accepting of ideas, and I appreciate your ideas as well. So thank you very much. And thank you. Just I'll just kind of recap in the most concise way that I can. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I could share the layout if you want to see the general idea.
sure, absolutely. Is sharing enabled, or do I have to enable it
I
for you?
believe it's send request, it says.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. This will just give us something to look at instead of my ugly face, and we will.
Hey, I got that territory covered.
We got faces for radio, huh?
Exactly, and the voice.
And the voice. Okay, so the idea here, I mean, we'll start with the layout. Obviously there's some tree areas here. We looked to an area that wouldn't be too intrusive to existing activities. Would have the proper setbacks from this drainage area, from property lines, and again, be out of the way. So this is a reasonable area. I think there are, Don, what's up here? There was was it bocce courts or?
Yeah, and I think that, if the whole thing shifted to our right a little bit,
This way?
we would be away from the be off the recreation area, and maybe back a little bit gets us off the bocce court. And if
Yep.
it ends up getting a little smaller, there's a little more room, but that's basically the idea. I would probably shift it a little bit to the right.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And we would include like the tree clearing and stuff like that. And the ground preparation for the solar. There is a transformer back here, right, Don, in this area?
Just to the, right about where your arrow is now.
Okay,
Right
great.
there.
So we could potentially tie in there. These systems are front of the meter, so we're not actually offsetting any load directly behind the meter. We're simply selling the energy to the utility, and the energy is sold at a higher rate because it is an affordable multifamily property. Also, just location-wise, I mean, the funds could be used to relocate some of these tenant services if you wanted. If it's not necessary, it's not necessary, but just it's an idea that had come up from your board, Don, before on the first iteration of the site visit we had over there. So again, this is a front of the meter system. We would tie in here, most likely installing a new dedicated service switchgear, means of disconnect for this system specifically. So it would essentially be a standalone system in the eyes of distributed generation. The eyes of a solar array, it would be basically a standalone system. In other words, it's not associated with any of these utility meters that exist, because if it were, we'd have to cross the, trench across the asphalt and have to repair it. So we're trying to keep the costs as low as possible.
There's no virtual net metering in Connecticut, correct?
There is for certain properties. So you can do virtual net metering for state properties, agricultural properties, and municipal properties. So you could potentially, because this is technically owned by a municipality, and if you had a bunch of space, like let's say for 500 kW, you could install that here and then credit those kilowatt hours to town hall and a school or
Mhm.
something like that. And it wouldn't
Yep.
necessarily have to even be the town of Wellington. It could be any municipality that you make a deal with. Making the deal, of course, is the hard part.
Yeah.
Installing the system is the easy part, but getting a whole board on board to do this is a challenge, obviously.
Is there a
Right.
queue also that's full?
So Don, the virtual net meeting program that was in place like, I don't know, what, 5 years ago now, that was typically fully subscribed and there was a queue for that. For the SAM program, it's called State Agriculture Municipal, SAM, which is the new version of virtual net metering for only those types of facilities. It's part of the NRES program. And so the availability of those projects that can go into SAM is the same as the availability for NRES. So if NRES is full, SAM is full. It's basically you have to get an NRES contract, but when you apply for the NRES, you have to have the beneficial accounts lined up and everything kind of as a package, and then you put up a bond, the performance assurance. So we're not going to do that here. It's more complicated, as you can see, like lots more approvals, more people involved, but it's something to keep in mind for other town properties long term, and look at possible other properties. Maybe there's other open space near near roads with electric, three-phase electrical. That would be the most cost-effective approach for Wellington if you did want to pursue that. But for this,
Tim, Bill Bennell has a question.
oh, yes.
I was wondering, with the proximity of those panels to the building layout, would there be any kind of, what would you call it? Just visual intrusiveness of the panels, and if so, would they be perhaps able to be shielded with some plantings?
Yeah, we've seen plantings before. The front edge of the panels are, I think, 31 inches from the surface of the ground to the bottom edge of the panel. So obviously you wouldn't want plantings above that for shade purposes. But yeah, we have seen some screening, or at least it makes it kind of blend in a little bit more with the landscape. That is a hill, if you remember, that goes up from the driveway upward towards where the panels are located. And then the panels are almost on the apex of the hill. And then obviously on the backside, it goes down into the drainage, retention area. But to answer your question, I mean, certainly you'll see them. They're up on that hill. With regard to, we can use black panels, black frame and black center, which would help with any glare that you might be anticipating. It might be the direction you're going. But in the end, it is what it's an object. So certainly you'll see them.
Well, if they were a lot higher, then I'm thinking if you're looking out your window, I mean, you're not necessarily looking up. You're looking straight out, more or less across. So anything that helps to obscure that, or is maybe a little higher than what would normally be the visual realm, would be good.
Yeah, that's certainly a good point, and we could look at that. I would say the highest point of the modules is it's usually about 10 to 12 feet. It depends on the configuration that we end up with, but let's say 10 to 15, like 15 being the worst case. And you can adjust that obviously by adjusting the angle. So a lower angle will yield a lower overall height. But you don't want to go too low of an angle because you start to sacrifice performance and
Degrade performance. Yeah.
snow won't shed off it. So yeah, John knows. So
Right.
But yeah, we could talk about that. And if it ends up being a non-starter, then the sooner we know that, the better.
Well, it looks like there's already solar on several of these buildings in this complex. Is that what I'm looking at there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it could well be that the folks that are living here aren't going to find solar panels to be especially ugly because they're already using them.
See if they're getting free internet.
That's being that they're on the roof and not on the ground.
Yeah.
And of course, the people on the Planning and Zoning Commission in general don't live there. And they are the ones that get to look at this on paper and make a determination as to whether it's appropriate or not for Button Hill. So that's just another hoop.
Another wrinkle. Okay,
Yeah.
Tim, go ahead.
No, that's good feedback. And I mean, so basically the best way to go through this program, it's the affordable multifamily program. So again, it's specifically designed for these types of properties. It provides a higher compensation for the energy that's sold, which is why we're even considering doing a land lease, which is the proposed approach here. So the concept is the Connecticut Green Bank has developed this program with the utility and with the legislature, and they've gotten that law passed. So they really know the ins and outs of how the program, there's a lot of rules, as you could imagine, for these types of projects, and they understand them. And they are willing to take on the risk associated with having to conform to those rules, right? We may be able to get cheaper money somewhere else, but I wouldn't dare even try because I wouldn't feel comfortable. I want to work with somebody that I know is going to not cause problems for the end user and not cause problems for me. So the Green Bank is the right fit for these projects. They've been a great partner. Katie Shelton, Mackie Dykes, Elise, Heather, the whole crew over there, they're fantastic. We have a weekly call with them just for developing these projects. So the idea is you guys put no money up. The Connecticut Green Bank will lease the land from you to own. They will own and operate the solar panels. They will recoup the money over a 20-year agreement with the utility. What do you get in return? So you will receive a small annual lease. Now, I've based the numbers on a kind of a conservative worst case scenario. And what does that mean? The worst case scenario is we have to trench from here all the way up to the main road in order to tie into the primaries. And, you know, it's a huge cost. What's the best case? Best case is we can connect right here. The transformer upgrade is paid for by the utility, and you know it's a simple interconnection. So the way I approach these projects is I get pricing based on a conservative estimate of pricing, and then we go to contract with the Connecticut Green Bank. The Connecticut Green Bank has agreed with Earthlight specifically for these types of projects to pay for the engineering up front. So the engineering on something like this is, I don't know, $10,000 to $15,000, depending on the scope, right? Like site visits with the utility, and that's including, you know, our time, Earthlight. Obviously, we don't want to chase a bunch of these projects that are never going to work. And so we meet with Eversource on site. We create stamped electrical drawings, stamped site plans, prepare the interconnection application, submit the application to the utility, and then work with them on the review. And then the result of that process is the utility will tell us exactly what they're going to require. So obviously we're going to propose we interconnect here and, you know, as little as possible. And so we'll spell out to Wellington Housing Authority what is a standard interconnection requirement and what is a complex interconnection requirement from the utility, because we have no idea what the utility is going to require until we submit an interconnection application and get all the ducks in the row from them and get a directive. So that's the approach.
Is this all underground service here, Tim?
It is.
That's what I thought. Okay.
It splits right over here, right about here, goes to Wellington Woods and then over to here as well. Two branches. So anyway, that's a lot of talking, but the bottom line is kind of the worst case scenario is you'll get $1,700 a year. So that's the $35,000 over 20 years that Don was alluding to. And then the major benefit, so that's not much, $1,700 a year. What are we talking for? But the major benefit here is because the major benefit is you'll also receive $226,000 up front. And that those funds can be used for improvements to the site or ongoing services for the residents. So that $226,000 is what's called the tenant share. So there's the owner share, which is the $1,700. There's the tenant share, which is $226,000. But because Wellington Housing Authority pays the electric bills, it's considered master metered, which means that the money can be used for improvements on site. So that's the proposal. Green Bank pays you 226,000 upfront that you guys can use, and then the 1,700 is residual. The other part of that proposal, so that's the major part. The second part to remember is we're trying to improve the 1,700 to a higher number. And that is a result, that's a direct result of whatever the result of the interconnection application is. So if the utility, will tell you, again, we'll show you what our plan is for the standard interconnection. And then once the results come back from the utility, we'll say, okay, they've made us do this, this, and this. And so that's how it impacts the pricing, basically. There's no way to price it without, it's impossible to price this without going through the interconnection process. So that's we've gotten Green Bank and Earthlight to take on all the risk associated with it. So it's just kind of whether it makes sense and it's worth it to you guys to partner with us.
Okay. So that 226, that you said, with that being the tenant share, that's not something that we could share with the town. That would have to be for the benefit of this site, correct?
I believe it's the benefit of the site. Yeah, I think that's right. I think the 1,700 you could share because that's the owner share. So I think you can do whatever you want with that. So if you had to,
I would propose perhaps giving that entire amount to the town, and just deal with the 226. Could we use that money for, say, what if everybody needs a new roof? Could we use that money towards new roofs? What could that money be spent on?
I think you can do new roof. It's aimed towards energy stuff, but what they do is they have an appeal process where if you have something that the tenants want, you can request that they review that. So Mackie Dykes from the Green Bank is one of the people on those boards, and then I think it's a couple of people from the utility or from Pura that will review your request for whatever project you want to do for the tenants. As we're talking, John, I don't know about a roof because it's kind of something that you're required to do anyway. So
that'll be regular maintenance, not energy specific.
Yeah.
John, do you know the details?
No.
Yeah, let me read under other measures. There's 11 other measures, and I copied this from the actual rules. A landlord, project owner, or developer may propose additional uses of the tenant portion of the tariff. Any proposed measure that is not on the above list, and I'll read that list if you want me to, of approved building upgrades shall be evaluated during the eligibility screening process to confirm that the proposed building upgrade provides a financial benefit to tenants.
Okay.
So it's sort of
what
like
was
that.
What was the list, if you don't mind?
Okay, but just to reread that last phrase, confirm that the proposed building upgrade provides a financial benefit to the tenants. And the financial benefit there would be that they're not going to get stuck with a rent increase to help pay for a roof. But okay, we got energy efficiency measures that we really don't need too much of because we were only built 7 years ago. We got energy storage, which would be a backup power supply if we wanted to put in lithium-ion batteries. And
that'd be nice.
Broadband access, which is something, like I spoke before, about $55 a month, which would suck up an awful lot of that beneficial money for tenants. Remediation of any barriers to energy efficiency, such as lead and asbestos abatement, but that's not applicable. Operational reserve for unforeseen operational expenses that could impact rents. EV charging stations, which we wouldn't have a problem spending on that. Balanced ventilation. Well, that would be nice because all we really have right now is an exhaust fan and cracks around the windows and doors as our balanced ventilation methodology. Green spaces and community amenities like gardens and playgrounds, that could go towards replacing or relocating the playground rec area, and security measures that we could use a few cameras. So we can spend some of the money, but I'm not sure we can spend all of that.
How are these buildings heated and what do you use for hot water, Don?
Right now it's propane heat with a boiler, 2 boilers that have broken down. And we considered, heat pumps, but it's a challenge, it's a bunch of rewiring and stuff, but that's still a thought. And the gas is also, I'm sorry, the hot water is also, propane powered because the hot
Okay,
water
well-
heaters are 100,000 BTU water heaters, and no heat pump water heater is going to come close to producing that much hot water. So that's sort of a long explanation of the other measures, but it's, it's sort of like when you make application, you talk with them about it if you want something weird.
Yeah, I would be tempted to just say put it in reserve, for the benefit of the tenants. There's not enough money there to do like a full district heating geothermal system or anything like that. So,
Right.
yeah,
And according to my EIA comparison chart, depending on what we pay for propane, and I can't remember what I put in there without looking, it's air source heat pumps and propane, air source heat pumps powered by electricity, of course, and propane, just about exactly the same annual cost for energy.
right. Well, I would do air source heat pumps powered by solar and then you're making out. But
Yeah, but in this case, well, the advantage of doing heat pumps is that we can bump up our allowable number of solar panels because we increase our kilowatt hour consumption. And there
Right.
is a chart within the program rules that basically says, we give you credit for those future heat pumps and you can put in solar panels and reap the financial
To
benefits. of
accommodate them.
those. Yeah.
that
So
that might be a worthwhile spend of $226,000. Even if we can
it
convert half of
might
them,
be. It might be.
might be.
Hey, Don.
And like, yeah.
Yes.
I was just doing some quick numbers and looking at that 220,000. If we were to park that for 7 years at 5%, it would yield about 300,000 at the end of the period. I don't know what kind of a balloon payment we're looking at. And just to give some texture to the idea of the internet, 24 units at $50, 12 months a year, 7 years is like $100,000.
Okay. So 100K for internet that wipes out half of the
Half the benefit.
benefit. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the idea that we've also got reserve money that we're contributing every month.
And
So
I'm trying, yeah.
I'm not sure that, some of that might come into play, because it's available.
Till you talk to Lori and she doesn't want to spend any of it, but
Well, yeah.
let me hear again the $300,000 worth of interest earned.
Oh, I just did a savings calculator, $220,000 with no contributions for 7 years at 5%. Said it was 300,000.
Okay, I mean, granted, we need to spend, if we spent that on internet at $50 per apartment per month or 55, that would draw down that amount, so we wouldn't see that full interest savings that you're talking about.
We
Probably
would have to, we would want to check with the Green Bank on the eligibility of being able to use the funds for a balloon payment on the mortgage though, too, obviously. And that's sounds borderline to me, just for our discussion. Obviously, I want you to be able to use it for whatever you want, but I'm just trying to be upfront and honest as far as what I think would probably fly or wouldn't fly. Now, maybe there's an argument that the rent's going to go up for that balloon payment. So maybe there's a levelization that can occur by knocking that down before the payments have to go up from the tenants.
So many
Yeah.
questions.
There's an argument to be made for that.
Listen,
Yeah.
Having the problem of how to spend the 226,000 is a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's right.
You've invested
I got a
nothing.
spot.
And some smart fellow is gonna figure out a way to make that work for us, for everybody.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right. Are we all done with this topic? Is there any more to discuss?
I just want to say there's two transformers. There's probably another transformer about 300 or 400 feet east of that one that you were pointing out before, Tim. So we got two 100 kW transformers there.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and let me know if you need me back for any sort of vote, or I'm not sure if you guys are recommending or declining or how the process works to the rest, but here to help. And
We'll discuss it, Tim, and we'll have, we can only recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they do things. We have no, like, we're not signing any contracts. We have no authority to.
100%
anything, so,
understand. Yep.
Okay.
I got you.
All right, Tim, thanks so much for your time and your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you
you.
very much.
Have a good
Thanks.
meeting. Good night.
Hey, Tim, before you go,
Yes, sir.
before you go, our library in town is it's on the corner of Route 320 and Route 74.
Okay.
And it's got a decent south-facing roof on one side. I measured it. I did a Aurora Solar mock-up on it, and I think I could get 42,000 watts up there.
Okay.
I've been told, however, that the circuit over there is full. I'm not familiar with full circuits in Massachusetts. When we have a problem with the transformer, we add another transformer. I
wouldn't be, I mean, I'd have to take a look at that specific area, John. The question would be, if it's on a main drag, usually 40 kW, I mean, 42 kW DC would be what, 30, 35 AC.
Yeah, somewhere in that range, yeah.
If it's a major circuit, that's not gonna be a problem. If it's a residential single phase circuit, then yeah, it might be an issue with capacity. So
Okay.
we'd have to take a look and see.
All right, let me, my wife's chair of the library board. Let me see if they want to take up an investigation on it.
First step would be an electric bill. That would be helpful just to see what rate they are. See,
Yeah.
if they're rate 1, it'll be a heck of a lot easier to get through.
Okay. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Tim.
You got it.
Okay, that was new business A. I believe new business A and new business B are pretty much the same thing.
Yes. So it's been covered.
Okay. C, the status of energy assessments for our town buildings. Do we have somebody working on that?
I thought we had a private company that was gonna look at that.
I know that we had a meeting with the folks that Peter approached about Cattle Rock, however you pronounce that. We had a meeting with them, and they said that the assessments could be done for $3,500 per building, and that the utility would reimburse us for those assessments. But the town didn't want us bringing in any new energy broker, given that we already have an energy broker. So I don't think there's anything being done moving forward for those assessments. I will see if I can get in touch with our energy broker to see if he knows anything about those assessments or if he can facilitate them.
Okay.
I'll do that this week. Okay. 5D, discuss Ecotone Renewables Biodigester. Size of a 20-foot shipping container, can process 500 pounds of food waste per week. Don, did you bring that to our attention? Did you send that around?
Yeah, I think I did. Yes, I did. Chloe Matronis from Ecotone Renewables contacted me a few times by email, and I responded back to her. I'm not sure that the town needs that, nor do I know what it consumes in electricity to operate it. Needs 100 pounds of food waste a week to operate. It's
It needs
three-phase.
a minimum of 100. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes, that's my understanding.
Don't those generate electricity though?
I'm sorry?
Biodigesters, I thought they generate electricity, don't
And
they?
it generates gas,
Or
which
they
can be
heat?
burned.
Compost,
Yeah, it generates natural gas
liquid fertilizer.
and liquid fertilizer. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know they have different ones, because I know they put a big, they installed a bunch of biodigesters in the state when they, a few years ago, they had some new rules where, food waste, if it's over a certain amount, if you generate over a certain amount, it has to go to a biodigester, and they were converting it to electricity, but you're right, they probably turned it into gas and then burned the gas.
Right. They're probably, yeah, exactly. They're probably turning it
Good
into
one.
gas and then burning that. Yeah. There's digesters all over the place. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the dairy, the farmer's cow. They have a biodigester.
I think,
So they're all their animal waste and stuff like that.
yeah, the DEP, I think, has one too at their facility, in a parking garage or something. I heard.
Who
years
is that?
ago. The Department of Energy and Environmental Protection.
Ah, okay.
I think they have one in their parking garage or out back or something.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in getting one of those for our transfer station. I just don't know that it would have to be voluntary because there's no requirement that people compost. A lot of
Yeah.
people that compost already have compost piles in their yards, so I don't know that you're going to find a whole lot of people interested in doing that. Although if we could reduce the tonnage of waste that gets hauled, it might be worthwhile.
Do we know what the schools generate in food waste?
I'm sorry, do we know the what generates?
What the schools, like Hall School and Center School, I mean, they serve lunches. They're gonna be
Yeah,
generating.
I would imagine it's quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's probably the bigger generators.
Bill Bunnell?
Yeah, and isn't there a regulation in the works or on the books that by a certain date we have to process a certain, food waste, as opposed to throwing it into the burn section?
Yeah, I believe that's coming. I don't think it's here yet, but I believe it's
Right.
coming. So that's why I was saying we should get in front of this with a voluntary program, so that we're ready once the regulations come into effect. That was my thought.
Yeah.
I liked this idea because I don't think there's any cost to the town except for the $500 a month operations and maintenance, basically. Yes, Don.
Let me just read a little bit more of my notes here. We drop the stuff into the digester, they buy back fertilizer, what they
Right.
claim.
Right.
It's $1,500 a month to rent it. If you can generate $1,000 worth of fertilizer, it brings the cost down to $500 a month. It's
Right.
3-phase, 220 volt, needs 50 amp circuit minimum, 100 amp recommended. So it's not a small energy consumer.
Hmm.
And they're working on harnessing biogas for self-generation of power. So that's what I know about it at this point.
Okay, so they don't actually have a biogas generator, as incorporated as part of their device, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like
but-
they're taking the product too.
I'm
Say
sorry,
again?
Bill, sounds like what?
Sounds like they're taking the product as well.
Right, they take the lion's share of the product. I think if we make more than $1,000 worth of the fertilizer, they'll leave whatever, if we make $1,010 worth of fertilizer, they'll leave us one bottle, right?
I don't know that we can, actually count on being on the right side of that line of production every month.
Right, exactly. Yeah, where
This would be very
we might be
expensive.
paying more than $500 a month, and
Yeah.
it's going to depend on how many people are using it. And like I said, it's going to have to be voluntary. We can't require it. But with a proper, with proper get out the notice to people, maybe we can get people to volunteer to do it.
I'm gonna send a link to everyone after the meeting. They've
Okay.
got a couple of videos posted online. Probably worth a look. I can't imagine a whole lot's gonna happen, but
Why don't we go ahead and invite them to our next meeting?
okay.
Right.
Ralph Tula says it looks like Zoom dropped out, but it didn't drop out for
Didn't
us.
drop out here. Ralph, you got kicked off somehow, sorry.
Ralph, we're still on Zoom, so I don't know what to tell you.
we've been on right along, Ralph. I saw you drop off and then come back in, so
Maybe it could have been my ISP too, so.
could be.
Okay,
We've been steady right through. So,
I just had a-
I did look at the front page of our Board of Selectmen webpage on the Wellington website. And I noticed a paragraph in there saying that they had revived or that they had established or revived the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And I was really excited. I thought that perhaps those would be the people that would want to take up this composting thing. It turns out that that page hasn't been updated since 2017 when they did the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And everybody that was on that committee, their terms have expired and there is no committee anymore. So I think it falls to us to take a look at this. If we think it's something worthwhile, we might want to advise the Board of Selectmen to pursue it, but let's
Yeah.
take a look at it at our next meeting. I like the sound of it.
yeah, and I'm sure they'd be happy to attend, so.
Yeah,
And
we would need other information as well. What does it cost right now to haul a ton of trash? That's a question, because however many tons we divert from our waste stream, there's some savings to be found there. This thing is able to process, it said 500 pounds a week, so roughly 1 ton a month. If we're paying $500 a month for it net, and it costs us $400 to get a ton of trash hauled away, then it's costing us $100 net. So, on the other hand, if we divert 3 tons of trash a month and it costs us 400, then we're making $700 a month. So, it's all a question of scale, and it's a question of, will this work for Wellington? And are there enough people in Wellington, for lack of a better word, willing to bring their compostables to the transfer station? So,
Yeah.
Again, I think if we looked into how much the schools are generating, they're probably generating enough alone, and that would offset the budget.
yeah, that's very true, Ralph. Thanks. Yeah, good idea. So let's can somebody want to follow up on that? We'll look into the schools and we'll invite those folks.
I don't know how to figure out the tonnage on what the school is actually discarding.
Well,
I
they
don't-
must have some idea of what their trash hauling bill is. Right?
Yeah, okay.
We start with the superintendent. He could probably hook us up with the right people to talk to.
Right.
Or at least
Yeah,
tell
whatever they're
people,
paying,
tell people to
whatever
talk.
they're paying for trash removal, how much of that is compostable? That's the
I mean,
question.
we're trying to find out what the output of the schools are.
Yeah.
I could look into that.
Bless you.
All right, great. Thanks, Bill.
Right after tax season.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
tomorrow.
You better finish my taxes first, Bill. All right. Are we all set with that?
Yes.
Okay. 5E, discuss how tariffs and any future rollback of the new federal IRA may impact future solar. I'm not so concerned about solar because a lot of the solar that we're looking at these days, we're not going to find power purchase agreements. The old way of doing power purchase agreements was great when Eversource wasn't paying 37 cents a kilowatt hour for solar power. If Eversource is going to pay 37 cents, you're never going to get somebody who's going to